Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hawk at Home, and today I'm going to show you how to make a loaf of sourdough bread. So we are fully ready with all of our materials here, and I can't wait to make this new loaf with you. So today we're going to make what's called a bowl loaf of sourdough. So that's more of a rounded loaf of sourdough. There's also more of an oval loaf, but that's not what we're going to be making. And so I have all of my materials here. I have my flour, my salt, and my water ready. And if you know anything about sourdough, those are our only 3 ingredients. And so if you're sitting there thinking, but what about my starter? Your starter is actually made of just flour and water, where the natural yeast in that flour has been activated to create your sourdough starter. So really, it's just flour, salt, and water. And then my starter is fully ready. It is very, very happy today. Look how much that has risen. It is all the way up here to the top. So we're going to use that today. And so you want your starter fed and over doubled, like we talked about in the starter video, so that way you can use it to make a great loaf of sourdough. So first off, I have 1 2/3 cup of warm water, and I'm gonna pour that into my bowl. And then we're gonna get 1/2 cup of our sourdough starter. So when you get your sourdough starter, you want it to be super duper bubbly. Look at that, looks great. All right, so we're gonna take a 1/2 cup measurement of that and just scoop it on out. And then I'm gonna use a spatula get off any extra. And then you're just gonna add this to the water, and then you want to use a whisk, and you want to fully incorporate that starter into the water. So you just want it fully mixed in. So I'm gonna do that right here. And there it is. You can see it's fully mixed. It's nice and bubbly. It looks great. And so next, we are going to add our flour. Now, there are many different types of flour you can use for your sourdough bread. Today, we are going to be using bread flour and whole wheat flour. Now, what I want you to know is you can use all-purpose flour, but you cannot do it for this exact recipe. All-purpose flour has to use less water, so I highly suggest just using bread flour and a whole wheat flour as you start out your sourdough journey. So we have our water and our starter that we just mixed together, and now I'm going to add 2 2/3 cup of bread flour to the mixture, and 1 cup of whole wheat flour. And then I'm going to take my spatula and I'm going to start mixing that together, but I'm actually going to finish mixing it with my hands. So the reason I use my hands is you want no dry spots in with your loaf. And so it just helps me better to be able to see and feel that there's no flour pockets that are hiding within my dough. So I've started mixing it, and now I'm just gonna go in with my hand. See? You're just gonna squish it all together. See how it's starting to look less dry? And it will be very sticky. All right, so now that you have your very sticky mixture, you have your flour, your water, and your starter all in there together, you're going to take a towel and we're going to cover this mixture and leave it to sit for 1 hour. And then we'll come back and we're gonna add our salt and our water, and we're gonna learn all about how to do our folds. All right, so we are back 1 hour later. Our sourdough has sat for 1 hour, and now what we are going to do is we are going to add 1 tablespoon of salt, and then you wanna pour 1 tablespoon of water right over that salt. You wanna hydrate it and let it start dissolving. And then what we're going to do is we're gonna take our hands and we're gonna mix in that salt. And you wanna mix it in until you cannot feel the salt granules anymore. Now, when you're doing this, you'll be able to tell exactly what I mean. And also, you do not want to skip this step because if you forget your salt, your sourdough will not taste good at all. I can tell you that from personal experience. Now, after you mix your salt in, your dough will become much less sticky and more elastic. As you see here, it's not sticking to my hands as much, it's much more elastic. And then we're going to do our first folds together. So I'm gonna show you that right here. All right, now that you have mixed your salt in, we're gonna do our first set of folds. So you're going to grab the top side of the loaf and you're going to pull it up and fold it into the middle. Then you're going to turn your bowl 1/4 turn and you're going to do that again. And we're going to repeat this process 8 times. Then you want to lift up the whole loaf and you're going to turn it over. I like to fold down the sides a little bit so it looks more like a ball. You're going to set it back in your bowl, cover it with your cloth once again, and then in 1 hour, we will do another set of folds. So we are back and ready for our second set of folds. And so one thing that you will need for this is you do need a small bowl of water. And so you want to take and actually dip your hands into the water. And the reason for that is so that your hands do not stick to your dough. So you're going to take that, dip your hands in the water, and then I'm going to show you a close-up of our folds. All right, so we are back and ready for our second set of folds. And so you're going to repeat the same process we did last time with grabbing one side, lifting it up and folding it into the middle, 1/4 turn, repeat that, and we'll do this 8 times. And then you'll turn your loaf over once again, fold down the edges, and cover and let it sit for 1 more hour, and then we'll do our final folds. So it has been 1 more hour, and now we are ready for our final set of folds before we do our last shaping. And so I want you to notice with your dough that it is starting to get little air bubbles in it. And so that's what you want to happen. This is the dough proofing and fermenting, and that's exactly what we want to see. So we're just gonna do one last set of these folds, and then you'll leave it sit for 1 hour yet again, and then we're going to do our shaping process. And so the shaping process is also going to help create what's called tension in the loaf. And the tension that you get inside your sourdough loaf is what helps to create those beautiful air pockets and just that signature sourdough look. So that's exactly what we'll be doing. And so we will see you back in 1 hour. So we are back and we are ready to do our final shaping. And so for this shaping, you want to have your bowl of water. I want you to wet your hands again. And then we're going to take the loaf out of the bowl. So I'm just going to reach in and lift, and the loaf is going to fall down on the sides a little bit, as you can see here. And that's what you want to happen. So then we're just going to take that, we're going to set it down on the counter. And then I want you to reach under the opposite sides from what you just did and lift it up again. And see how it's starting to fold under itself? So then I just push it and fold it under, lift it, and do that 2 more times. So you want to do 4 times total. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take your bench scraper and you're going to stick it underneath the loaf and you're going to turn it around. And what this is going to do is this is going to create that nice bowl shape. So I do this about 4 or 5 times. It also creates more tension, and you don't want to create too much tension because then you'll pop your air bubbles. All right, so then your loaf should look very similar to this. See it up close, all beautiful. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna sprinkle it with a little bit of flour, just right on top. And we're gonna cover it with our towel and let it rest for about 20 minutes. All right, so we're back 20 minutes later. I want you to take your proofing bowl and we're just gonna line it with a little bit of flour. And you wanna do this so that way your dough, your sourdough loaf, does not stick to the proofing bowl, because we definitely don't want that. So I just sprinkle it on in, just like that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our bench scraper, and I want you to go underneath your loaf and lift it up and turn it over like this, all right? Then when you have your loaf like that, I want you to take this front side, fold it in the middle, do the same with the back side, and the same on either side of the loaf. Then those new 4 corners that are forming, we're gonna fold those in as well. And then I want you, after you do that, to pick up your loaf and put it in your proofing bowl. And then what you're going to do after that is all of these little edges, you're gonna pinch them all shut. So the reason you wanna be pinching all of these edges shut is just to keep the loaf together. So it just helps it to better stay the way we want it to. And then what we're gonna do after you pinch all those shut, this is how your loaf should look. See that there? And then we're going to take our cloth and we're going to cover it. And I like to tuck my cloth under tightly. And we're gonna put it in the fridge to proof overnight, which is also called bulk fermentation. And I usually do that for 12 to 24 hours. Then tomorrow, we're gonna come right back here and we're gonna bake this loaf together. Hey everybody, it is the next day and now we are ready to bake your loaf. And so what you will need today is you will need your proofed bread, your bread lame or a very sharp knife, your Dutch oven, a piece of parchment paper, and a cookie sheet. So, first thing that I want you to do is I want you to take your Dutch oven and I want you to place it in the oven and then preheat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and I want you to preheat your Dutch oven for 30 minutes. So I usually just set a timer, that way I don't have to worry about how much time has passed. And so after you do that, I want you to take your loaf that you have proofed overnight in your fridge. My loaf has been proofing for almost a whole day. And then I want you to take your piece of parchment paper. We're going to lay that over top. Hold the sides of it like this. And then we're gonna flip the loaf over onto the parchment. Now, because you floured the bowl, the loaf should not stick. See here, comes off very easily. And then you can see the loaf here, all ready to go. And so then what we are going to do is I am going to show you just a simple scoring. So the reason that you score a loaf is so that when it bakes, it actually rises well. And so if you do not score it, you will not get as good of a rise or those beautiful air pockets that we want and that classic, wonderful sourdough airy taste. So you definitely want to score a loaf, so I'm going to show you that right here. All right, so what I want you to do when you go to score your loaf is I want you to take your hand and just spread out that flour a little bit so that it's nice and smooth on top of your loaf. And then I want you to take your bread lame and slightly off center, I want you to hold your lame at an angle or your sharp knife and just do a deep angled cut all the way across the loaf. Now that we have scored our loaf, I want you to take your loaf and you're going to put it in your preheated Dutch oven and you're gonna put the lid on top. And then you wanna place the whole thing in the oven on your top rack. And then I want you to take your cookie sheet and actually put it on the rack beneath the Dutch oven. What this is gonna do is it's going to prevent the bottom of your sourdough loaf from burning. And so it actually absorbs all of that extra heat. So that way the bottom of your loaf gets a nice crispy texture, but not a burnt brown texture. So then you wanna bake your sourdough loaf at 500 degrees for 25 minutes. Then what I want you to do is I want you to take off the lid, reduce the heat to 450 degrees and bake it for another 8 to 10 minutes. That last 8 to 10 minutes is gonna get you that nice, really good crust on the outside of your sourdough loaf. So you definitely don't wanna skip that step. After that, we're gonna take it out and then we'll look at the loaf together. So I just took my loaf out of the oven after the 450 degree bake for 8 minutes. And I'm so excited to show you guys. Okay, so here it is in my Dutch oven. Oh my goodness. Guys, look at this beautiful loaf. It looks so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here is a little trick to make sure that your loaf is done inside. So I'm gonna turn it over, make sure you're wearing your oven mitt, and then you're gonna knock on the bottom of the loaf. And that's what you wanted to hear like. It should sound hollow. So there we go, it's nice and hollow. Now I'm going to place my loaf on a cooling rack for about 2 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll slice it together. So we have our loaf here and we are ready to slice it. So what I like to do is I like to slice it with a large serrated knife, like this one here. And I'm gonna show you my favorite way to cut sourdough that's so easy. So what you wanna do is wherever the ear or the fin of your sourdough is, you wanna cut to the side of that. So we're just gonna cut right down the middle. Nice and flaky. That's the way we like it. All right, let's look at the inside of this loaf. Oh my gosh, beautiful. Look at that. It looks so good. It's delicious too. All right, so you have these two halves and you wanna take the first half, lay it flat like this, and then we're just gonna cut slices along the side. And look how much easier this is to cut. And you just get these perfect slices. And it'll come with some practice, and so it takes time to learn, but look at these pieces of bread. Oh my goodness, they're beautiful. All right, so there we go. There we have it, our beautiful, gorgeous sourdough loaf. And so thank you for joining me for our sourdough series. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And I hope you guys will tag me wherever you are on social media so that I can see your sourdough loaves as well. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Hock at Home, and obviously right here on YouTube.